Hello everyone, welcome back to the best place for the best takes. I'm Benjamin Cure. This is the Benjamin Cure Show. Welcome back everyone. We have basketball mania going on right now. Over the weekend, we had great college hoops games, some crazy comebacks there, even in my own home state, if we're being honest. I'm not going to talk about them this week, but I am going to talk about the NBA and basketball overall. I mean, the hallmark of the weekend was the Lakers' 27-point comeback. I will be discussing that and what it means for them going into the postseason. I'm even going to talk about some baseball, but that comes later in the show. We do have to start with the most interesting story in the NFL, one that we have discussed many times on this show, an individual that continues to make headlines and continues to create buzz. I am, of course, talking about Aaron Rodgers and his darkness retreat, at least this time around. So last week, midweek, probably Thursday, Friday, it was reported that Aaron Rodgers had emerged from his darkness retreat and that, let's be honest here, there were a lot of conflicting reports if you were looking online. There was reports that he stayed at a particular lodge. There was another one saying that he stayed in the mountains, in the caves. There's some reports saying that he stayed only 2 days or that the retreat that he went to was only 2 days. It wasn't a 4-day one. There's other reports saying that he stayed the full 4 days, or there's others saying that he left early and that's why it's 2 days. We are not going to know the truth until Aaron Rodgers goes on the Pat McAfee show tomorrow. That's my prediction. Pat is back from his vacation, so I think they will get the full story out of him and we'll see what happened, what didn't, and what frame of mind he's in. But, I was scrolling through social media. There were some people that claimed they took tours of the exact room that Aaron was in or the one that he was going to be in. That could have been wrong because there's conflicting reports as to where he stayed. But in those comment section, you had people who were very supportive, who said, hey, way to go. That's a cool thing for him. Some people that thought it was cool. Some people that were skeptical. Some people that ridiculed him for it. And, I'm never the type to go after somebody because of what they do. But as an athlete, you're held to a higher standard. And, different strokes for different folks, but I've always maintained that Aaron Rodgers is a little bit different from everyone else. And if I was an NFL GM, or even if I was a fan, I wouldn't love that. So Aaron Rodgers, like I said, has always been different from everyone else. He's unique in what he does, his approach, the way he talks to the media, how he says what's on his mind as a quarterback, and things that are usually reserved, that are kept, behind closed doors. He's willing to say certain things that no one would ever consider or think to say if you're a different kind of more conservative NFL quarterback. But Aaron does it differently, and he's unique. My problem is Aaron Rodgers' uniqueness, it's unnecessary. The fact of the matter is, Tom Brady won 7 Super Bowl rings. He never went on a darkness retreat. Patrick Mahomes just won an MVP in a season where he lost his best wide receiver. He never did ayahuasca. These are things that Aaron Rodgers does that, sure, it may work for him. In the end, he looks really good during the regular season. He's won MVPs as of recently, not this year, of course, but he does get these individual accolades, and Aaron is going to do Aaron, and he's still going to have highlight-worthy plays that will live on for generations, but it's not enough to get you into the postseason. Those things don't get you into the postseason. They don't promise you success, and it's the reason why after 18 years in the NFL, Aaron Rodgers has just one Super Bowl ring. And to me, a lot of people refrain from saying this, and I can't help but wonder why. To me, Aaron Rodgers spending 18 years in the NFL and having just one Super Bowl, to me, that qualifies as the most disappointing NFL career I've ever seen. Certainly in my lifetime, and I think in NFL history. For Aaron Rodgers to be in the NFL for 18 years, to play really well at a high level, to win 4 individual awards as MVPs, 2 back-to-back as of recently. And to always, for the most part, he's been healthy. He the way that he throws, his mechanics that he learned from Brett Favre to keep him from getting injured, where he jumps up when he goes to throw the ball, all these little things, to have been in the NFL for 18 years, to have been healthy, to have had, relatively great teammates on both offense and defense, and to have only one Super Bowl to show for it. Sure, being a Super Bowl champion is a tremendous accomplishment. Being a 4-time MVP is as well. But football, no matter how the game changes over the course of the next couple of years, football will always be seen as the ultimate team sport. What did you do as a team? And the crowning achievement of a team is the championship. And Aaron only got one. Aaron Rodgers, to his credit, has built a brand beyond football. It's not one that we may love. It's not one that he may love. when we tell him what we actually think of him, but he has built a brand and an aura outside of the game. So did Tom Brady, and so did Peyton Manning. Here's the difference, though. When I think of Tom Brady and his legacy beyond the game of football, I think winner. I think greatest of all time. As of lately, you may even think charisma, persona, because Tom came out of his shell once he went down to Tampa. When I think of Peyton Manning, I think of family. I think of football. I think of history. I think of someone who did it the right way. When I think of Aaron, I think of selfishness. I think of arrogance. I think of greed. I think of anger. I think of someone who's moody. That's what Aaron Rodgers leaves behind as his persona, his defining traits. And if that doesn't bother him, it should. 18 years, more than triple the average NFL career, and only one Super Bowl to show for it. That's an indictment on Aaron Rodgers. And, next week I already have a segment planned that I'm going to do with you guys that has to do with Aaron Rodgers and his postseason career and his postseason performances as of recently. And I'm going to compare him to some names of some guys that we don't like, that we think are pretty average at the quarterback position, and the results are going to shock you. I'm not going to give away too much, but you do have a preview for next week's segment. And for that to be the case for Aaron Rodgers, who is the most talented quarterback of my lifetime, at least before Patrick Mahomes came along, it's an indictment, it's a problem, and it does tarnish his legacy. Always being the guy who claimed he never wanted the media attention, never wanted the cameras or the lights, but feels like he relishes in it the most out of any quarterback in the NFL. It's very hypocritical, it's very strange, it's very egotistical, and it's just Aaron Rodgers. And I hope that he puts it behind him, he makes the decision, because that's what we're all waiting on. But this whole Aaron Rodgers darkness retreat thing, I'm not here to consistently knock on him or badger the guy, but the fact of the matter is there are other great players who have achieved great things who didn't have to go to those extents or do those things. Mahomes, no ayahuasca, still gets the MVP. No darkness retreat. Tom Brady still has 7 Super Bowls today and retires as a first ballot Hall of Famer and is universally recognized as the GOAT. And he played in the same era as that guy. And he played in the same era towards the end as Patrick Mahomes. And still, it feels like a lackluster, underwhelming, underachieving career for Aaron. Let's see what he ends up doing. Let's see where he ends up going. I still think no matter what, he's going to come back and play. The question is where for me? Is it the Raiders? Is it the Packers? Is it somewhere else? Like I said, if you're a basketball fan, this weekend you are in heaven. So many great games, so many exciting storylines in both college hoops and in the NBA. Some big-time comebacks, some big-time games. The Clippers and their opponent putting up over 170 points each. But of course, the crowning achievement of the weekend, the crown jewel of the NBA, was last night, LeBron James' 27-point comeback alongside the Lakers, of course, against the Dallas Mavericks. 27 points, fourth quarter comeback, the largest comeback of the year in the NBA. So this is very, very telling. You would think, if I told you after the All-Star break, after the acquisitions the Lakers made, hey, the Lakers made a 27-point fourth quarter comeback against Luka Doncic and the Dallas Mavericks. How did they come back? You would probably assume, they did it by three-point shooting. They found their rhythm. The role players scored. They made some big-time plays. They were pretty efficient. That's not the case. Take a look at the box score from that game. It is so very interesting. The Lakers, as a whole, went 6 for 34 from three-point range. The player with the most amount of threes for the Lakers in that Dallas Mavericks game was Beasley. He shot 2 for 11. So 2 3-pointers was the most anybody scored as an individual player. What was it that got the Lakers to come back into that game? Well, it's the overall field goal percentage. Everyone was efficient from field goal range. AD, healthy, put up 30. LeBron James puts up his classic number 26. Vanderbilt, who was a story of the night, put up 15. Schroeder put up 16. And then you had role players who did pretty well. So this is a Lakers team that has gotten a new influx of talent. Not super talented, but role players. And they got rid of Russell Westbrook. This is Exhibit A of addition by subtraction. The Lakers are more efficient. They're more smooth. They operate better now that Russell Westbrook is gone. And there's a lot of NBA fans out there that they'll do this throughout the course of a season. I call it the the underground storylines. People like to think that they've got hot takes that no one else sees or thinks. And one of those narratives midway through the season when Russell Westbrook was coming off the bench and not doing awful was, Russell Westbrook is overhated. He's still got it. He's great. He is still a great player in this league. He's overhated. The media needs someone to make a villain out of. And to that I say, what? I mean, it is one of the funniest things I've ever seen. People continuing to defend Russell Westbrook, and Russell Westbrook seemingly defending himself, acting like he is still MVP Russell Westbrook, like he's still the guy that he was 4 and 5 years ago, when he's not. He's a shell of himself. And why is that? It's because Russell Westbrook's playing style was that he was hyper-athletic. That was his strength. And what do we know about people who are hyper-athletic in leagues? No matter what sport it is, they age fast and they age ugly. Cam Newton in the NFL was a showstopper, and the day after felt like he had fallen off a cliff and is unfortunately no longer in the league. A career that was so strong, that was so impactful, that was so show-stopping, that was so popular, and it's gone overnight. Because in a league where everybody's athletic, where everybody's tall, where everybody's strong, where everybody's fast, in sports in general, being hyper-athletic only lasts so long. There's a window of 3-4 years max. Russell Westbrook is long past that window, and for some reason, he, nor those around him, nor fans are willing to accept that. These Russell Westbrook defenders that defend him to the end, when in reality, he's showing you he's not very efficient, he's not a good passer, he's not a scorer anymore, especially from beyond the arc. What is Russell Westbrook at this point? He's an overpaid role player. That's what he can be. That's where he can be efficient, but he doesn't want to be that. He's his own worst enemy. And I post clips, like I've said, on social media of these rants. And I look at the comments. And on the Russell Westbrook clip from last week about the Clippers, him joining the Clippers and how I thought they were doomed, people were saying in that comment section, Russell Westbrook is a great passer. He's a great scorer. He's going to be surrounded by shooters. He's an excellent point guard. You don't know what you're talking about. Am I watching basketball? Or are you watching? Clearly, they're not watching the game because Russell Westbrook looks awful. He's a turnover machine. It doesn't look good when you watch him. And then when you look at the box score, Russell Westbrook is top 5 right now in the NBA in turnovers. That's not necessarily bad. I'll be honest here. Trae Young is up there. He's in the top 5. Giannis is in the top 5. But what's the difference? Those are starters who are playing 38 minutes a game who are averaging 30 points. Russell Westbrook is averaging 15 points, is coming off the bench, and with that little amount of time is still top 5 in turnovers in the NBA. That's unacceptable. You can't win like that. That's why the Lakers couldn't win with him. He was more valuable on a different team than he was on someone's. I mean, the Lakers had to trade away a first-round pick in order to get him out of the building. That's not just contract talk right there. That is a problem. That is, no one is willing to take a chance on him except the Clippers. I don't know. The Clippers remain dysfunctional, I guess. I mean, they brought in Kawhi Leonard. He doesn't play more than half of his games. He's not a vocal leader. Paul George, of course, we know, like I said last week, never became the guy. I could go on and on and on. But Russell Westbrook was very evidently weighing down the Lakers, and you're seeing it come to fruition. So this is very encouraging for the Lakers, what we saw over the weekend. Not great three-point shooting, awful if we're being honest, and they still found a way to win a game in a close situation, and a game that they were down in against a very talented team who we think could win in the West, especially because they have Kyrie Irving now, who was healthy, who did play during that game, who got blocked by LeBron James. That was a very fun sequence to watch. So they've got their field goal shooting down, it seems. What do they have to do? They've got to light it up from beyond the arc. They've got to find rhythm from three-point range. Once they do that, they are going to be a team to watch in the postseason. And let me tell you, as talented as other teams are in the NBA, like the Suns, like the Warriors, like the Dallas Mavericks, I guarantee you that those players are looking around at each other in the locker room and they're saying, I don't want to face LeBron James in the opening round of the playoffs. No one would want to. The amount of vengeance that he's going to come back with after that defeat against the Suns a couple years back, he is going to come back with vengeance. And now that he's got a team that is not weighing him down, that are just role players that he can distribute the ball to, this looks like this could be a very interesting team to watch. Lakers should be good. By the same token, before we go, I will say, depth is overrated in the NBA in the postseason. It doesn't mean as much as people think it does. It doesn't mean as much as it does in America's favorite game, like football, in the NFL, for example. Depth matters in the postseason, big time. You saw it this NFL postseason. Injuries can be detrimental to a football team if they don't have someone to back them up. In the NBA, though, if we're being honest, depth doesn't seem to matter as much as one would think. I mean, the guys who make the biggest plays in the biggest moments end up being your stars. It's usually not a role player. And you usually find as well that they don't get utilized as much as you'd think. That's why the Heat, as great as they've been, as much depth as they've had in recent years, they don't make it very far in the postseason. We're not talking about them as a finals team. It's because other teams are more top-heavy, and that matters more in the NBA. So that's where the Lakers could run into some problems. They've got AD, they've got LeBron. Who else is there? Who can step up? Is Schroeder going to be a big-time playoff player? Is Beasley? I mean, these are the kind of things that... Is Hachimura going to show up off the bench and put up 30 or 40? Highly unlikely. If he gives you 20, you'd be lucky. This is where the Lakers, they have their limitations, but by the same token, they could be an interesting team. We'll just have to wait and see. So I discussed the NFL draft on this show last week. I talked about Bryce Young and the hype behind him. A lot of people pushed back on that take. They did not love my opinion on Bryce Young. We'll see what happens, but draft talk is going to be ever more present on this show with the NFL draft coming up. We've got the combine around the corner, and I'm taking a look at the prospects in the draft, and this one interested me. Bijan Robinson, the running back for the Texas Longhorns. I have never felt so confident that a running back is going to go in the first round. Now, bear with me here. I'm the first one to say I will not pay a running back. If you do, it's a death sentence to your team. The contract is going to weigh you down. It's not an essential position. However, by the same token, I would be willing to draft a running back. That's the perfect place to get your running backs. You're drafting them. You can draft them high. You don't have to pay them a lot. This is where you get your running backs out of. You get them in the free agency market, the veterans, the scrappy guys, the low-cost guys, and then in the draft, you get the young guys who you're not paying yet. Bijan Robinson would make for an excellent first-round pick. He would be a pretty high... any team who drafted him would probably get a pretty high grade, an A+, at least a B-. He is a good pick, and there's a lot of teams right now that are fighting to create and mold a viable run game. So I was going over the draft order and the draft picks and backfield numbers from this season. And there are 12 teams in the NFL right now who desperately need a running back. And I could see definitely drafting Bijan Robinson. And there's two more that are kind of on the cusp iffies. And I'll get into those afterwards. But teams that I could see drafting a running back, although they have other needs, Arizona, Atlanta, Carolina, New England, Tampa Bay, Los Angeles Chargers, Baltimore, Minnesota, Dallas, Buffalo, Cincinnati, Philadelphia, and even Kansas City. Remember, Kansas City's not paying Isaiah Pacheco. What if he goes down? What if he gets injured? They could have another running back that they're not paying. They don't really have any needs outside of maybe an offensive lineman that they could go drafting and mentoring. Kansas City could get Bijan Robinson if he falls that far. I don't think he's going to, though. So those are 12 teams, right? And then you also have two teams who don't need a running back right now, but if they don't end up franchise tagging their guys, they could need one. Of course, I'm talking about the Raiders, and I'm talking about the Giants. Those are two interesting situations where if you let your running back walk, are you willing to just draft another one and pick up where you left off in your running game? So I also found it interesting that Tampa Bay could use a running back. They're not going to get a quarterback out of this draft. They just want to be viable. You could also go the route of, Cincinnati. Joe Mixon's in some legal trouble right now. Maybe you part ways with him and you say, hey, let's just bring in Bijan Robinson. He'd be an excellent addition to our backfield. I think that could be pretty good. There's a lot of teams here that could end up drafting running back. My point being, I have never been so confident in a running back going in the first round because there's so many teams that would need one. And Bijan Robinson is the guy. He is a first-round lock. It has been a long time since I talked about baseball on this show. MLB fans know this. It's been about a year, and I made my take about a year ago that baseball was dying, that ratings were going down, in-game attendance was awful as well, and the show has grown a lot since then. I gave you a problem. I did not give you a solution, so I look to do that today. So, by the way, speaking of which, it's been about a year since I made that take. It was one of my very first takes in the show. The show actually celebrates its 1-year anniversary this week, Wednesday, March 1st. So that's a nice little nugget of information. Clearly, we have grown production-wise. The picture of the show, it looks different. It looks better. The audio is better. It sounds better. So I'm always looking to grow, and I'm glad that we've made it to the 1-year mark. That's a special hallmark for me. But going back to the sport of baseball, it looks like I, Benjamin Cure, I'm going to have to present some solutions to the game of baseball because clearly they don't get it. So over the weekend, there was a lot of talk about the automatic strike because of the pitch count or the clock where the batter was takes too long out of the box. It happened with Manny Machado. They gave him an automatic strike because of that. And there was an uproar on social media. A lot of fans saying they hated it. Others saying keep it in. And let's be honest, when it comes to that specific instance, that rule, baseball has one of two ways about going about this. They can either stick to their guns, they can keep it, and baseball and players will have to get used to that. They will have to speed themselves up, speed up the process. Or they could crumble under the pressure and the MLB could say, okay, we're getting rid of that. Either one could happen. But I have 3 practical solutions that the MLB could implement over the course of a game, over the course of a season, and over the course of many years that would help grow the game, its audience, and fix baseball. So number 1 is implement robotic umpires. Human error is not a part of the game. It should not be a part of the game. It should not be a nostalgic thing. Oh my gosh, the umpire, get the calls right. You can do that with a robotic umpire, and it's also quicker. None of the back and forth, none of the little yippy-yappy argumentativeness between the catcher or the pitcher and the umpire. Get rid of that, or even the batter himself. Get rid of those stare downs. Just have the robotic umpire implemented. I think you're good there. Now, over the course of a season, everyone seems to be afraid to say this, cut the games in half. No 162-game regular season. That is insane. 81-game regular season. Baseball needs nothing more. Make the playoffs feel a little bit more impactful, a little more special. Get rid of these regular season games and only play 81 of them. That is still plenty of games. The NBA plays just about the exact same amount. That's all you really need. I mean, think about it. Baseball, by having 162 games, is only doing themselves a disservice. The NFL is smart. They've always been ahead of the curve, especially as of recently. They can make a casual fan feel like a diehard fan because a casual fan can watch every single game of the year and they can feel like, oh, I'm invested because it's one game a week. The NFL is smart that way. What happens in Major League Baseball? There is not a single fan on earth that is watching all 162 regular season games of their favorite team. That's ridiculous. It is impossible. So this is evident not only by ratings, by attendance, by what I'm telling you, but by other companies. Bally Sports, who is a sports broadcasting media company, their parent company is declaring for bankruptcy. Their main gig was that they had the rights to, in addition to a ton of NBA games, a ton of regional MLB games. They had all those markets for different, regions. Here we had Bally Sports Sun and Bally Sports Florida. They're all going under. Why? I can afford to take a break once a week and watch an NFL game. I can watch a good amount of NBA games, 30, 40. I cannot watch all 162 baseball games in a year. Diehard broadcasters have not been able to do that ever. I mean, unless you're the in-stadium announcer, and even then, you're only getting the home games. This is what I'm talking about. It is not doable. It's not feasible. It's simply not possible. Cut it down to 100, from 162 games to 81. And last but not least, the solution that will carry over the course of years, that will make parity a thing in the MLB, that will restore parity in the MLB. Get rid of this no salary cap way of doing things. Implement a hard salary cap in the MLB. Force teams to have to bid carefully and not just outbid every other team out there. It's ridiculous. It's embarrassing. There are teams this offseason that already spent over $500 million. Yeah, the Mets are the most obvious, but think about it. This offseason, the teams that have spent the most in free agency and re-signing, San Diego Padres, the Yankees, the Mets, the Phillies, the Cubs. Guess what? Those teams will probably end up being the last ones standing in the postseason. The most expensive payrolls in baseball. That's the way it's always been my entire lifetime. And now the Mets are just abusing of this. They signed 10 guys to contracts that are just shy of $500 million, and they've already spent and everything else over $500 million this offseason. That's too much. That is, you're not allowing the bottom of the barrel teams to compete. Houston, any week of the NFL season, can still compete with the Chiefs. You saw it. That was an interesting game. Why? Because there's a salary cap. You have to be smart and calculated with your decisions in free agency. You can't pay everyone. The MLB, you can pay everybody. Even if a guy gets injured or the contract ends up looking awful, what happens? You're not punished for it. You can just buy another player. That is stunting baseball's growth. There's no parity. And if you bring back parity, you can bring back your league. 3 things that could fix the MLB. Robotic umpires, cut it to robotic umpires, cut it to 82 games in regular season, and the salary cap. Those 3 things can fix baseball and can save Major League Baseball. We will see how this Major League Baseball season goes, but I can already tell you the highest spending payrolls will end up making it to the postseason. It's not going to be interesting, and it's the reason why baseball is struggling and suffering. With that, we conclude this week's episode of the Benjamin Kier Show. Make sure to rewatch on here, give us a like, go on social media, check out the clips, and make sure to celebrate with us on Wednesday. I'm going to be posting some stuff on LinkedIn about some of the metrics that we've achieved, but this show has grown tremendously over the course of 1 year. I'm so excited for what happens in year 2, and I could not be more excited. Until next week, I'm Benjamin Kier. This is the Benjamin Kier Show.